So it's an exciting time in smartphones. I mean, we all know this. We've been watching, and probably the thing I'm getting asked about the most in the smartphone universe is folding phones. Is this a thing? Should I wait for these? For a while there, it was strictly the Galaxy Fold that people were talking about, and rightfully so. It looked like a finished product, like a real product, and we hadn't seen that before. It was obviously expensive, $1,980, but then things got even more interesting, even more spicy, because this device right here came out, the Huawei Mate X. Well, it didn't come out, it was announced, showed off, and handled, in fact. And this is a totally different take on the concept of a folding phone. So in the case of the Galaxy Fold, we have this clamshell type design, which puts another display, a supplementary display on the outside of the clamshell, which allows you to interact with the phone when it's in its folded position. Now that's different from the way that Huawei approached their folding design with the Mate X. So of course, the purpose of this video and the question that everybody has is, which implementation do I think is better, and which phone should you be waiting for if in fact you are waiting for a folding phone? So what Huawei did here, they took the giant display and they folded it over in the opposite direction. So the whole thing's a display, and then the back side just shuts off when you have it in smartphone mode. What this means is you end up with a bigger display that you can utilize in a more typical smartphone fashion, but on the front of the device. I must say, I saw some clips of the device. Because of this folding style, it seems that along the hinge portion, you can see some wrinkles in the OLED. Now, of course, when you're flexing or bending anything, you're going to have to leave some room for these kinds of small variances. But the promising part is that when the phone is folded out completely or incompletely, it looks like it's not an issue. Now, the next thing to talk about is price. The Huawei Mate X is like the most expensive smartphone, at least mass market smartphone, that I've seen, probably with the exception of all, those luxury things and whatnot. The Mate X is said to be priced at €2299, which converts to about $2,600 USD. That's a very expensive smartphone, even if it so happens to fold. But you got 512 gigs of internal storage, 8 gigs of RAM, and you get a bigger display, especially in the folded mode when compared to the Galaxy Fold. Now, price-wise, it's about $600 more. But when it comes to both of these devices, I sort of look at them as these loss leader type phones. I'm not saying they're going to lose money on it, but I don't think margins are the most important aspect of these products, profits. Instead, they need to act like the F1 car for each of these two brands in order to send the message to the smartphone marketplace that the cutting edge exists, well, for Huawei with Huawei, or for Samsung with Samsung. And it seems to be working, because the conversations that I'm having in public are following along these lines. I think the Samsung product at this point right now looks a little more robust. For some reason, I have slightly more confidence in their approach to the design and the hinge, with the mechanical components that they showed off during the presentation. But at a distance, not having handled either of the two devices, which of course I'd love to, Samsung, let's talk, Huawei, send it over, let's get this ball rolling. You can bring it, you can accompany it, it can be a briefcase with the handcuff on there if it needs to be. But at a distance right now, there's something for me that's just a bit more compelling about the Huawei product, the Mate X. And I'll tell you what it is. I don't think anybody in the folded mode, in the slab smartphone mode, really wants to downgrade to a smaller display than what they're currently used to. And with the Huawei device, you don't have to make that compromise. You still have a big, you have a giant smartphone with a slim bezel, and when you're using it in that mode, it looks like a legitimate substitute for whatever flagship people are familiar with. That's a bit different than what Samsung is doing, obviously. That said, from a manufacturing standpoint, I got to give a little bit more confidence to Samsung, just because of the hinge design that they showed off. It looked robust, it looked strong. But if I had to pick one right now, if I had to have my hands on one, if I had to experiment with one, I think the Huawei product just seems a little bit more advanced. Nonetheless, it's all good news, because at first, when I first heard about these things, I didn't see legitimacy at all. I was like, maybe I lacked the imagination at the time, but I saw so many holes in these potential implementations. But these are both, this has gotten me excited in the tech realm in a way that hasn't happened in a long time. And when these products launch, there's going to be a lot of videos, a lot of interest, and those questions that are happening for me already in the real world, I'm going to be able to address them in video format, so you can make a decision for yourself, and you can possibly move into the folding future that looks to be inevitable at this point.